The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back, Mets in the Zone. Our guest is Joe Rini. We had some technical difficulties, and we're back. Marty Rose is here, Bernie Rose is here, and Robert Cole is here. I'm Ralph Tyko, the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. We're going to join in progress a Joe Rini, who is a beat writer with the New York Mets. Our guest, we're going to join the interview in progress. Sit back and enjoy. All is well. Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back. New York Mets in the Zone. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and that's Bernie coming on the line, I'm betting.
Yeah.
But we have a full house, and Marty Rose is here. Bernie Rose is here. Robert Cole is here. Marty's going to introduce the guest, and happy to have you, sir.
Okay, we have Joe Rini, who covers the Mets for the Rockland County Times in Westchester County, and also for Last Word on Sports. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be on the show. Actually, just I've written for the Rockland Times, and right now I'm actually currently writing for Last Word on Sports, which is an online publication. But thank you for having me.
Sure.
Joe, I'd like the audience and the panel to get to know you a little bit. So let me ask you, did journalism come first, or did the Mets come first?
Oh, I guess I was of that generation who perfectly timed becoming a Met fan with the 1969 team. I had a dad who was a Brooklyn Dodger fan, a huge baseball fan, who actually only passed away last year at the age of almost 97. Wow. And big Mets fan, and all my older siblings were big Mets fans. So it was very easy to get caught up in that hoopla as a young 6-year-old boy. So so it's been a lifelong journey. Let's put it that way, as far as being a Mets fan. Journalism came after that.
Okay. Now, did you go into journalism with the idea of writing about sports, the Mets in particular, or was that just kismet? Well, I actually had a very, unique road to the journalism. I'm someone who had, writing was always something I kind of did as a sideline, in addition to, what our, a quote unquote day job. And, for example, even, I guess probably before I did covered the Mets late, maybe like 2008 or so, I had written a one-act play that was in a one-act play festival. And, I kind of, did things on the side like that. And then a unique opportunity came in 2012 when my wife was doing some contracting work for the Rockland County Times. And, and I wrote an article that was kind of a tongue-in-cheek article about the Mets and called, it was called, Are You a Mets Fan? So Am I. And it was about being a camouflage Met fan, literally because I had a Met baseball cap that was in like the shape of like camouflage. So it was from a giveaway. But anyway, the response to the article was well received, and then from there I started covering the Mets for the paper. It was a weekly edition, so maybe it was writing every week, every other week, and I did that from 2012 through 2019, and COVID sort of put a little interruption to that, and paper was sold, and this year I started writing for Last Word on Sports. So it's so I guess compared to other people, it was kind of a unique way to get there, and and of course to cover the Mets.
that's like a dream come true as well. To both to be riding and covering the Mets team.
Well, you are definitely in the right place for Met fanaticism. Except for Bernie, who's new at it, and he's only at the stage of fanata, but he's not a fanatic yet.
Okay.
Bernie's a fraud.
Yeah, but I go back to the beginning with you guys. I mean, I wasn't at the first game like Mert and Ralph, but I was around.
Well, we were in the first game at Shea Stadium.
At Shea, right.
Really?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, we were. We all cut high school that day.
Oh, really?
How many of us? I always forget, Marty. How many of us were there, sitting in the same section?
We took up a whole row. There was 17 of us. 17 of us.
Wow.
From Northridge and Southridge in Jackson Bay.
Oh wow!
We all got on the Q66 and took it down to Shea Stadium. It was great. It was
Did you just buy the tickets? Were they tickets? Did you get them same day tickets? Were they available, or did you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm pretty sure they're just general admission, $1.30. At the game.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was that had to be fun. I guess there was a lot. Which high school would that have been? Which high school was that you went to?
Newtown.
Newtown. Okay, I remember Newtown.
Elmhurst.
Yes, right. I went to high school. I lived in Brooklyn, but I went to high school to Thomas Edison High School, and they were our big rivals in track. Well, I ran track, so they were our big rivals in track in Queens. But yeah, no Newtown very well.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, we were famous for our rifle club.
Oh, well, we had a good soccer team, Ralph. We had a good soccer team. All those Israeli guys,
Yeah. I'll give you a bit of trivia, Marty.
Okay.
They played in for the PSAL championship in soccer, and Marty Glickman was the announcer. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, sure, yeah, remember.
Oh, my God, yes.
Wow.
And I was there, when they won in 1969. I was there watching all the games. You guys actually weren't.
We
Marty
don't fault of your own, unfortunately. But
Marty was in Vietnam. I was in California. Robert Cole, where were you in 1969?
I was in Center Reach, Long Island.
Okay, so you were up close and probably more than any of us. Hey, I want to go around the room and have you guys ask Joe questions about what it is to cover a team, whatever questions you may have of a beat writer. And if you would, let's start with Robert Cole.
Okay. Well, actually, Joe, you've been on my website a couple of times on Facebook.
Okay.
The Mets from the Polo Grounds to City Field.
Okay. Oh, great. That's a great site. Great Facebook site.
Yeah, and, we enjoy having you come on, and, feel free to come on there anytime.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. How do you, like today, okay, for instance, okay, how are you going to cover the game since we're all here and not watching the game?
Well, for me, it's typically, again, I cover the team. I mean, beat writer, I'm not there every day, so I wouldn't really consider myself a beat writer. When you're with a publication like mine, we don't get the same access that, somebody who's writing for the news or, the Post is going to get. I mean, we get credentials per game. Sometimes we get it 1 game a homestand, 2 games a homestand. So they have a little better access than I do. So I kind of have to, when I'm there, it's like, I'll be on the field. You know, I sometimes get clubhouse access. Usually I don't. So I got to be a little resourceful. Like earlier this year, you know, there's Taiwan Walker on the field, and, you know, I get a chance to chat with him, and, you know, we kind of discussed, you know, how the year has been going for him. He's pitched very well, and what it's been like for him to pitch in the absence at that time of both DeGrom and Scherzer. And then also there was Tommy Hunter was a recent article. You know, I find him a very interesting player. You know, chatting with him, I felt, you know, the gratitude. I mean, of a guy who, you know, it's not like he's been in the league 15 years and he's going to the Hall of Fame. This is the guy who's worked hard for 15 years. You know, he's bounced around a bit. You know, I find it very interesting that he has done so many roles. I mean, this is a guy who, when he was a young man with Texas, was starting games in the playoffs as a pitcher. And, you know, now he was a closer for Baltimore. Now he's kind of like, you know, what do we call kind of like, you know, you could say a mop-up guy, or just kind of like a guy who's sort of like, you know, fits a role with the Mets. So that was kind of interesting. And then even, you know, going to a game a few weeks back, or I guess, or maybe when they were playing the Phillies, in addition to writing about the game, I later built up an article about, you know, like there was Zach Wheeler. You know, like there was nothing going on really on the field. It was kind of a rainy day. And, you know, there was some guys working out, but then Zach Wheeler pops out of the clubhouse, you know, onto the log dugout, you know, chatted with him. And then one of the other Phillies was going through his drills, you know, chatting with him about what he was going through. So, you know, I try to be, and then of course, you know, there's always Buck. Buck is very good, you know, very accessible to the reporter. So that's also very helpful too.
Good.
Bernie, question.
I wonder if you have any notice of the difference in the ball players of today from, I don't know how far back we can go. It just seems like with so much money in the game these days, these guys, they're all like businessmen now, you know? And is there more of a camaraderie between them? Is it what differences have you seen?
Well, I mean, again, I've covered them for about the last 10 years. It's just from also having covered, you know, some of the older players, you know, I mean, you know, it's been great at times, you know, over the years I've gotten to meet the 16, you know, chat with the 69 players from 69, the players from 86, that kind of thing. I think, you know, I think there's definitely, it's interesting. I think a phenomenon now that you probably didn't see back then is I think there's probably more camaraderie between teams almost. I think between, you know, I guess because there's so much more player movement with guys. And then, you know, guys on different teams might have, you know, the same agents and everything. So I think you kind of see that. You know, obviously there's things different in the training, you know, what these guys do. I mean, these guys, you know, it's, you know, you can go from the very simple that they do a lot more weight training than they did. But now also it's gone to the extreme also. These guys, they monitor, you know, their diet, you know, and it was funny that one day I was chatting with, was it the Philly? I forget which team now off the top of my head. I think it was when they were playing Seattle, actually, chatting with the Seattle trainer, just talking about all of the different analytics they do with guys, like to the point of what muscle groups these guys have are tighter and looser versus others, and how, you know, there's definitely a big science that goes into it besides just lifting weights. So,
right.
It's funny. I look at guys, and, you know, obviously the guys the guys we grew up watching, I mean, they had to get, you know, jobs after their careers. If they didn't stay in baseball, they certainly weren't, you know, financially set for the rest of their lives. But, you know, from what I've seen of people, they don't really resent it. I mean, Ron Swoboda, I remember I saw him first when it was at the Baseball Writers Dinner in 69, and then we wound up meeting, and then we actually struck up a correspondence. I wound up interviewing him for his book. And I remember that, like that night, he said, these guys are good. He wasn't the guy who was going to tell you these guys are, that we were better in his day. I mean, it's funny with all the extra training these guys get, or just all the video and everything, about, Ron would say, Yogi would, an unofficial batting coach would be more like, see the ball, you hit the balls, because that was what Yogi was. He wasn't, it's not, he was just so good. I guess he's not going to be like a real a real teacher of the game. Let's put it that way. So, I mean, heck, Ron, even when he hit his 2 homers against Carlton, I think, Ralph kind of worked with him before, just that game was something. So it's a different game, but I think at the heart, these guys work hard. It's a tough game. I mean, I think if anything, that's maybe why I'm kind of hesitant when I write to be so judgmental, because I feel like, these guys are the best of the best, and, they work hard to get here, and they work hard to stay there. So it's, I kind of,
guess.
Yeah,
I mean, want to stay,
yeah. Well, here's just an interesting thing. At the last game I went to after I was at the Friday night game that they lost to the Braves, and I asked Buck Showalter about when Alonso nearly got hit in the face with the ball from Ian Anderson, and what did the emotion of that play anything into the rest of the inning? And Buck took the question, and he kind of like, and he said that people really should appreciate how difficult that is for Alonso to get in the box, because he said pitchers are going to pitch him up and in with the fastball, and a guy like Ian Anderson doesn't have his command that night. So you got to be able to stand in the box with a guy who doesn't have his command, who's throwing the ball up and in. And Alonso stood in there, and I think a pitch or two later wound up, lining a single. And he's, so, that's a tough thing to do. So it's hard to like sometimes stand in judgment, when you last played for an organized team when you were a teenager, to say that a guy should do this or a guy, is not playing well, that sort of thing.
Cool.
Hey, before I get to Marty, let me just ask you, Joe, what do you miss about yesterday's game, and what do you like about today's game that wasn't, it's changed, and what changes do you like?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, right off the bat, I mean, I grew up watching Tom Seaver, for the Mets, and his contemporaries like Steve Carlton, Bob Gibson, and I really miss seeing the dominant starting pitchers go 9 innings. I mean, the fact that we don't really see complete games anymore, that I miss. And also, there's just too many strikeouts in the game now. I mean, the way the game has evolved. I mean, I go back, not even, all of us, when we remember the great rivalries the Mets had with the Cardinals in the 80s. And like, I loved watching, guys who were able to steal bases. There was a lot of excitement in the game. We're like, we got to get Vince Coleman's leading off. We got to keep him off base. Oh no, we walked him. Now we got to keep him from stealing. I mean, there was so much more excitement with that. And then also too, like, I think of certain guys, certain plays who just don't exist anymore. Like a guy like Felix Millan. I mean, Felix Millan was he was an all-star second baseman. But, what did he hit? Maybe in a good year, maybe he hit 2 home runs, but he was such a valuable player batting second. He was a great, hitting and running, and, he was a Gold Glove second baseman. So certain plays like that I definitely miss. I mean, now it's, I still enjoy the game, obviously. I mean, about the changes, I mean, maybe the DH in the National League, I've come to accept it, where it's like, maybe it's not such a bad thing, because, back, to me, it was at a point where pitchers weren't really bunting very well anyway. And, And then also I feel just from judging players, I always felt like when the National League had the pitcher in the lineup, it was hard sometimes to judge how good a pitcher was versus, their peers in the American League. If an American League guy is facing 9 hitters and a National League guy is facing 8 hitters plus the pitcher, seemed like a little advantage for the National League guys. And so I think that's one change I think has been good. I didn't like the wild card. I think the wild card has been a good thing. Now, I'm not sure about the new playoff system, but I think the wild card has turned out to be a decent thing to have in the game. But yeah, as far as like when I think back to the days of us watching complete games and things and guys who could do a little more all around hitting, that's kind of what I miss, I would say.
Mm-hmm. What offsets that?
Offsets, having the
all those things. Strategy.
Yeah.
What do you like best about the game today?
About the game today, let's see. I mean, you've got some. You still have some really talented players. I mean, again, when you get the guy like Pete Alonso, who can not only hit, upwards of 40, 50 home runs a year, but look at him this year. He's hitting the ball the other way. He's knocked in, how many runs with singles. I think, I guess my point is like, I really appreciate a guy like Pete who's developed, I think, into a better all-around hitter. And then also a guy like Aaron Judge, for the Yankees. I mean, I think he's not just a guy who might very well hit 60 home runs this season. He's a guy who's hitting. I think he's actually hitting 300 at this point, and he's a great fielder. So I think, still enjoy watching the guys who can be, the all-around player. And I think also what I think I have is that in the game evolves. I think we always kind of fall in love with the game that we watched as young people. But, let's face it, the 69 Mets were as different from the game 50 years prior, 1919, than, the 69 Mets are to the game it is today. So I think you just have to kind of appreciate the fact that the game changes, the game evolves. Some eras are hitters' eras, some eras are pitchers' eras and things. So, again, I think we kind of cherish the game we grew up, and I think, you have to kind of also try to just recognize that the game evolves and it's going to change. I mean, Tom Seaver in '69 probably had 21 complete games. I'm sure there was an old timer who said, well, Walter Johnson, was completing, 37 games in 1918. Right. So, so I think you kind of, I feel like, it's great to remember the game we watched and appreciate it. And I think you have to look and see about how the game is played today and appreciate that the game has changed. That's, appreciate what we have.
Joe, one final question from me, and then I'll give you to Marty. What was the size of your Goosebumps when Gil Hodges was elected to the Hall of Fame?
Oh, inducted
to the Hall of Fame.
I was very, very, very happy. I mean, it's interesting. We had just moved back to Queens, and where I live, I go over that Gil Hodges Marine Park Bridge all the time. And I remember, I think it might have been like the day before he was elected, and I said, oh, boy, I hope, Gil gets in. And then I remember getting a text from my friend and I was very happy. I mean, I almost felt like once Gil got in, it doesn't matter to me who else ever gets in or doesn't get. I really felt like, and it was almost like I felt like we finally closed the circle with the Brooklyn Dodgers. Like everything, Gil was in, and it's like, okay, I think we've wrapped things up. And again, my dad was a Brooklyn Dodger fan, so Gil Hodges was very well regarded in my house. My dad used to kid how they had a bakery in Brooklyn in the 30s and 40s, and his wife Joan, the Lombardi family, were customers of of the bread bakery. And, when I would hear stories of him talk about just how connected the community was with the Dodgers, I mean, it was, and again, he's the guy who's all Met managers are judged again. For people of our generation, he's the guy that, we're all going to judge them again. And I was, so happy that his family, his wife rather, was alive to see it. And, it just really was a great day. I mean, I was very, very happy that, that he wound up getting. I think the Hall actually did a very good job this year besides Hodges. I mean, they elected several guys who really belonged in the Hall of Fame a long time ago. I mean, Tony Oliva, Jim Catt, Minoso, right, Buck O'Neill from the Negro League. So, yeah, I think they did a really great job with rectifying some of the, past slights. Let's put that. Yeah, it was a happy day, that's for sure.
All right. Marty Rose, the producer of the show.
No, I'm just wondering, have you been able to see any of the prospects at all, like the big guys?
I have not seen them play in person. Again, the fact that I'm not far from Coney Island, I'd like to try to, before their season's done, to get out there and see them play. Yeah, I have not seen the prospects play in person. I mean, we'll see how they do when they get up here. I mean, Buck Showalter has said more than once, that's, for a hitter, that's the biggest jump from going from AAA to the major leagues. And then just even chatting, with guys, when I've asked them that question, the answer you get is that, in the minor leagues, maybe you're facing a major league quality starter, once every 5 days, and obviously in the majors, you're facing a guy like that every night that you're out there. So, yeah, we'll see how these prospects do. I mean, you always have to wonder how much is it the organization building guys up, and then, do they really pan out? But, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Beatty and, Alvarez when he makes it up to the big team.
I have a good feeling about this Beatty guy. I don't know what it is. Ever since they drafted him, I just had his name is sticking in my mind, and now he just got promoted to Syracuse.
Yeah, that's right.
I think there's big things in store for him.
Well, I think, and I give them that credit. In the last few years, they've done better with drafting hitters. So that gives me a little comfort, I guess. They drafted, Alonso, and while he was here, Conforto was definitely, major league type player. So, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully he's the real deal.
Marty.
Yes.
Anything else you'd like to ask?
No, you take it, Ralph. Go ahead.
All right. What question didn't we ask of you, Joe, that you'd like to answer?
Oh wait, what question would I like to be asked that you would
Yeah.
Oh man, let's say. Well, okay. You want to ask me about my impressions of the changes that the team made at the trade deadline? How about that?
Please, that would be great.
Okay. Well, I have to say, I mean, I know everybody wanted Soto. That was the dream candidate, and it was very interesting when you think about it. Like, we all were thinking, people were all hoping, well, all right, if we don't get Soto, then maybe we get J.D. Martinez and everything. I didn't feel necessarily that the Mets had to get one of those really top guys, but I thought, well, maybe they'll get somebody, who can just be a dependable DH or someone to bat behind Pete. I really didn't see the scenario that they went by getting a guy like Vogel, a left-handed batter who hits righties very well, or that Naquin, righty who hits lefties very well, and then kind of easing Canna into a platoon and Escobar into a platoon, but and then certainly getting Ruff. At first I thought that was like a deal that maybe they gave up a lot for, but so far the results of getting those three guys, I mean, Ruff, Vogel and Vogelback and Naquin have worked out very well. So I have to give Billy Epler credit for those deals. And again, but like other people, I was a little surprised that how inactive they were with the bullpen. Like a lot of people, I would have loved to have seen them picked up a guy like David Robertson, a guy like, Iglesias, who the Braves picked up, somebody who could be that really lockdown guy in the eighth inning and could potentially save games for them. And the Mets didn't really go in that direction. I know Ottavino has pitched much better than I thought he would pitch. He had a rough year last year. He's getting a little bit older. He's had a great year this year. My concern with him is that in the postseason, I think he kind of wears – in the past, he's shown sometimes he wears down as the year goes on. So I don't know if he will be as sharp in October, if the Mets should make the playoffs, if he'll be as sharp then. And Lugo, the Lugo of 2019, we'd love to see that. He pitched great against the Yankees. He had a couple good outings recently. Maybe the Mets are banking on Lugo being the Lugo of old, but I really think they should have I really think that was an opportunity they should have taken to kind of beef up the bullpen a little bit more at the deadline.
Hopefully May can pick it up a little bit.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. It looks like they're counting on May. It looks like they really want to try to get David Peterson to be that shutdown lefty. Right. In fact, that's what I also was thinking. If they were going to get that eighth inning guy, at least get a more traditional shutdown lefty. Maybe they think David Peterson can fill that role. I think also they're probably banking on they've got, how many good starts. You've got DeGrom, Scherzer, Bassett, Walker, and Carrasco. One of those guys in the postseason is going to go to the bullpen. So maybe they're figuring, one of those guys is going to fit the bill and get some important outs for them in the postseason. So we'll see. This would have been a year where, like last year, I wasn't crazy about the deal for Baez to give up a good prospect for a 2-month rental. But, this year you might have been more inclined to that. Although I have to say the Baez deal, look at Trevor Williams. He's been great, in the role this year. So maybe he was, what might have been considered the throw-in in that deal might be the guy who has the more lasting value to the Mets.
Yeah. I think they dumped Baez because of that thumbs-down business.
Yeah, maybe they picked him up. They thought he would, Lindor had such a bad year last year, first year in New York. Maybe they thought Baez would help him, but then, of course, I think Lindor wound up pulling a hamstring, and he was out for 3 weeks or so anyway. And the season went south pretty quickly. They just couldn't hold on once DeGrom was out of the rotation for over a month last year. So, but yeah, that was last year. Hopefully this year it's a different story for them.
All right. Hey, guys, let's go around the horn and ask Joe anything you want. Just one question. Start with you, Robert.
Okay. I thought we did this already.
Okay.
No, one final question that you would have wished you asked before.
a final question I wish I would have had you guys ask me. Is that
no, this is
we're going around the horn.
Robert first. Anything you want to ask about any of the players, about Buck, anything you could think of, or not, or you could pass. This isn't $64,000 question.
I'm not in the isolation booth either, so I'm just in a room with the door closed. My family can hear me on the other side of the door.
If you were, someone would be sneaking you the answer.
Oh, okay.
That's showbiz.
That's right.
Well, what I would say is, in the beginning, I had my doubts when they announced that Buck Showalter was going to be the manager. I was concerned that he was too old school, and I was concerned that he might be burnt out. Those last couple of years in Baltimore really tore him up, and he's really surprised me the way he's handled the team. What are your feelings about that?
Oh, I'll tell you, I have the exact same feelings about him as you had. To be, is he too old? Has he been out of the game too long? I'll be honest. When, like a few years ago, when Girardi was available, I remember they interviewed Girardi. When Brody was still there. I guess it was after they got rid of Callaway. Brody was still there, and I think they interviewed both Girardi and Showalter. I remember thinking, I'd much rather have Girardi than Showalter, and I couldn't have been more wrong. I couldn't have been wrong about that. He really has done a great job with this team. The thing that you like also, what I like about this team is that they play good defense. The defense is so much more improved this year over last year. I remember the last few seasons, like when the Mets would play a good defensive team like the Cardinals, we're like, wow, that outfielder is getting the balls our guys aren't getting. These guys are pulling double plays that our team isn't pulling. So, he's really I had the same sort of concerns as you did, and, he's totally, dispelled every one of them. Yeah, he's really done quite a job, and the players seem to have responded to him as well.
Yeah.
Good question, Robert. See? Bernie Rose, take over.
Yeah, if I maybe a two-parter here,
okay.
Without trying to be Captain Obvious. How far can this team go if Scherzer or DeGrom, if something happens to one of them, or if nothing happens to them, do they have the best shot to take out, let's say, the Dodgers and everybody else in the league? And how important is that first round bye, which I think is really important?
Okay. Well, it's very interesting. I think the first round bye is very important, but the one thing, it's going to be very interesting, I think, this year to see how it plays out, because this year it's best 2 out of 3 in the first round bye. So you look about when the season ends, and so the first place teams that get the bye, they could have, I think, about a 5-day gap between the end of the season and when they start the next round. And, we've seen sometimes when teams get a long break in the postseason, like between the LCS and the World Series, they can just come in a little bit cold. So that's going to be very fascinating. But I think, obviously, if given the choice of a bye or no bye, you definitely want to have the bye, I think, that in that case. But as far as how far they can go, obviously, Captain Obvious, obviously with Scherzer and DeGrom, is they've got a better chance. They played very well without DeGrom this season, and so I think they could do well if they're missing one of them. Let's face it, they didn't have Scherzer in the rotation for 6 weeks. They held their own. They didn't have DeGrom in until recently. They held their own. So I think they have to have at least one of them. My biggest concern with the Mets, honestly, though, is, as I like to say, it's, outs number 22, 23, and 24. You could have a great starting pitcher, and we got the best closer in the game right now, but getting the ball to Diaz, he may have to come in and get a number of 5-out saves maybe when we get to the postseason. So I think they can go far. We get in the short series. Hopefully the bullpen holds up and everything. But yeah, I think if they're down one of the starters like Scherzer, DeGrom, I think they're still in good shape. Now, obviously, if Diaz is probably the most important guy, if he's not there, then it's then that's a different story. But that's one of the amazing things about this season. I think they've surprised a lot of people that they played as well without DeGrom, and for a good period of time without DeGrom or Scherzer in the rotation.
Okay.
Hey, Marty,
Yes. Okay.
Tell the man he was a great guest and take us out.
Excellent, Joe. Really. I just got one more thing. Brandon Nimmo. They did not extend him after last year. He's going to be a free agent.
Right.
How do you think the team feels about him going forward?
That's a good question. We all love to say, well, Steve Cohen can pay anything, so he definitely plays a big role on the Mets. I mean, he's a very good leadoff hitter and everything. It's unfortunate for guys in the big leagues, with the 6 year, they wait 6 years to hit free agency. Now he's hitting free agency. He's on the other, I guess he'll be on the other side of 30 when he does. I think if you're the Mets, I think you honestly want to keep him. I mean, he's a guy, he's he gets on base. He's a good guy in the the cliche. He is a good guy in the clubhouse and everything. So I think the Mets would be inclined to keep him. But again, if there's some other team out there who wants to outbid them for him, we'll see about that. But
30 next year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to get. I mean, if he's looking for the Mets to give him a 6-year deal, I mean, I don't think he's going to get I don't know if anyone is going to give him a 6-year deal, out there. But if he if they can get him back on a reasonable, 3-year deal, I could see, why would you let him go? I mean, I remember several years back with Murphy, and at the time I remember thinking well, if he wants 5 years, I could see letting him go. But then it's like, if you can get him for 3, keep him. And they let him, his price, they could have very easily have kept him, and they let him go, which was a big mistake on their part. So yeah, we'll see. I think they're inclined to keep him, but we'll see if there's anyone out there who gives them. Obviously these players are kind of, they're encouraged to take the best offer out there. So we'll see what the winter holds for him.
Excellent. All right. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it, Ralph.
I hope it was fun for you, Joe, because it was for us.
Oh no, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me on the show. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Please come back after the World Series and help us celebrate.
Okay. Well, a funny story. I remember when the Mets won the World Series at '86. And I remember going downtown with my sister and just holding up my 35 millimeter, Canon camera over my head to try to get whatever pictures I could get, and thinking, when they win it next year, man, I'll have a camcorder by then. How great is it going to be? And, here it is. We're waiting 36 years later. So the technology at least has gotten better by the time I get to record the next ticker tape parade.
Hey, when I think of technology, I think we have every baseball game available to us,
right,
from both sides, radio, television. If you don't have the patience to sit there and you just wanted its backup, I'm a big radio guy, but the privilege of having that, and I remember living in California, how few times I get to see the Mets. And I've seen them more this season than all the games I've seen combined. So it's great.
I'm big, of course, looking at the phone, seeing the box scores as the game progresses. And I remember, waiting on the corner for the Daily News to be delivered at 9:00 at night, just to see the box score of the game that took place 24 hours ago. So yeah, that aspect is nice to have all that information at our fingertips.
And once they delivered that paper, the late box scores out in San Francisco, LA, they weren't available. So
yes, exactly.
You had to wait till the next day, walk into school, buying the paper, and not only were you going to school, but the Mets lost 16-4, and it wasn't. it wasn't going to be a great day.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
All right. Hey, thank you again.
Great.
And like I said, please come back. If not to celebrate, to commiserate. We may need that too.
That's it. I hope not. I hope this is one. It's funny. I joke with my daughter. She's about the age I was when the Mets won the World Series in '86. I said, now just imagine waiting another 36 years for the next one. But thank you for having me on, and look forward to chatting with you again, guys.
Great.
Beautiful.
Great job.
Thank you again. Thank you for listening, everybody. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. The Mets in the Zone. Adios.
Take care, guys. Adios.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.